My accounts team messed up, so I'm fining them £20. The fluorescent lights of the office hummed, a soundtrack to my meticulously organized life. As a project manager at Synergy Marketing, chaos was my enemy and order my religion. My desk was a testament to this color-coded folders, precisely aligned stationery, and a distinct lack of clutter. My kingdom. The accounts team, however, operated on a different plane of existence, a swirling vortex of spreadsheets, coffee stains, and perpetually missed deadlines. Mark, their head, was a good bloke, genuinely, but organization, not his forte. Sarah, a senior account executive, was sharp, but she had a tendency to cut corners to meet targets. And David, bless his eager-to-please heart, was the junior, still learning the ropes, which often meant making mistakes. Abernathy's Appliances was our biggest client. Mr. Abernathy himself was a stickler for detail. Every comma, every pixel, every percentage point had to be perfect. He paid top dollar, and he expected top-tier service. Which is why I was personally overseeing the latest campaign, a multi-platform extravaganza designed to boost their summer sales. I'd spent weeks crafting the perfect plan, allocating the budget with laser precision. Everything was on track, beautiful, and ready to go. Then came the email. Subject: urgent, Abernathy's Appliances budget allocation. It was from David, and even the subject line screamed trouble. I clicked it open and my stomach dropped. Apparently, somewhere between the initial budget approval and the actual execution, funds had been misplaced. Specifically, a large chunk of the digital advertising budget had somehow been diverted to print ads. Print ads in 2024, my initial reaction was disbelief. How could this happen? I reread the email slowly, carefully, searching for some logical explanation. There wasn't one. The numbers were clear. The mistake was undeniable. I marched straight to Mark's office. He was on a call, gesturing wildly with a half-eaten sandwich. Sarah sat opposite him, scrolling through her phone. I stood in the doorway, radiating silent fury, until Mark noticed me. "I'll come in, just finishing up here," he said, waving me in. "It can wait," I said, my voice tight. "We have a problem, a rather large problem." I laid out the situation, pointing out the discrepancies in the budget. Mark listened, his smile slowly fading. Sarah, however, seemed remarkably unconcerned. Okay, so there's a slight imbalance," Mark said, trying to downplay the situation. "We can probably shuffle things around, right?" "Shuffle things around?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Mark, we're talking about a significant portion of the digital budget. We'll have to cut features, reduce reach, and completely revamp the campaign strategy." Abernathy's is going to notice. Sarah finally looked up from her phone. "Look, Alina, it's not the end of the world. We can tweak things. No one will even notice the difference." That was when I knew this wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a deliberate attempt to sweep the problem under the rug. Over the next few days, I tried everything to get the accounts team to take responsibility. I presented them with spreadsheets, charts, and detailed analyses, all proving the severity of the error. But Mark was evasive, Sarah was dismissive, and David looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I even went to Helen, my supervisor. She listened patiently, nodding sympathetically. But in the end, her priority was damage control. "Alina, I understand your frustration, but we need to focus on keeping Abernathy's happy. Just rework the campaign and let's move on." Rework the campaign. Those words echoed in my head as I spent countless hours rewriting, recalculating, and re-strategizing. The original plan, the one I was so proud of, was butchered, reduced to a shadow of its former self. Features were cut, ad spend was reduced, and the overall quality suffered. The campaign launched, and the results were underwhelming. Mr. Abernathy was not pleased. He called a meeting, his voice dripping with thinly veiled disappointment. The atmosphere was tense, and I could feel the weight of his displeasure bearing down on us. That was it. I was done. Done with the excuses, done with the incompetence, and done with the lack of accountability. I needed to do something. But what? Yelling and screaming wouldn't solve anything. I needed a solution that was both effective and, dare I say it, satisfying. That's when I remembered Clause 3:14, subsection B, paragraph 7 of the company's employee handbook. Buried deep within the document was a provision that allowed project managers to levy a small fine, a measly £20, for unforeseen administrative burdens caused by departmental errors. It was a rarely used clause, a relic from a bygone era, but it was there, in black and white. It was petty, I knew, but it was also perfect. I spent the next few days meticulously documenting every aspect of the accounts team's error. I gathered emails, spreadsheets, meeting notes, anything that could prove their negligence. I crafted a detailed report, outlining the impact of their mistake on the Abernathy's appliances campaign. Then, with a smug grin, I submitted the request to fine the accounts team £20. The announcement was made via company-wide email. The subject line read "Administrative fine imposed." I imagined Mark's face as he read it. The reaction was immediate and hilarious. Mark stormed into my office, his face red with indignation. "Alina, are you serious? 20 quid? You're fining us 20 quid. That's correct," I said, my voice calm and professional. Clause 3. 14, subsection B, paragraph 7. You can review the documentation if you like. Sarah, who had followed Mark into my office, chimed in. "This is ridiculous. It's just 20 quid. It's not about the money," I said, my eyes narrowing. "It's about accountability. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes. It's about ensuring that this doesn't happen again." The problem, of course, was that the accounts team didn't have a petty cash fund. That meant they had to collect the money individually from everyone in their department. And that, my friends, was where the real fun began. For the next few days, the accounts team was in a state of utter chaos. They went around the office, hat in hand, begging for spare change. The whispers and grumbling were audible. I even overheard Sarah complaining about me to one of the designers. The schadenfreude was exquisite. But as I watched the accounts team scramble to collect the money, a strange feeling began to creep in. Guilt. Was I being too petty? Was I overreacting? Was this really worth all the drama? Then came the Abernathy's meeting. Mr. Abernathy was clearly unhappy, and the conversation was tense. He wanted answers, and he wanted them now. Finally, he turned to Mark and asked him directly about the budget discrepancies. Mark started to stammer, making excuses and shifting blame. That's when I decided to intervene. I stepped in and calmly explained the situation, acknowledging the accounts team's error, but also highlighting the steps they had taken to rectify the situation. I emphasized their efforts to minimize the damage and their commitment to ensuring the campaign's success. I also subtly reminded everyone that accuracy and attention to detail were paramount. Mr. Abernathy listened intently, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "I appreciate your honesty, Ms. Alina. I'm willing to give you another chance, but I expect to see significant improvements in the coming weeks." The meeting ended, and the crisis was averted, but the fallout was far from over. Mark confronted me later that day, his voice laced with anger. "What was that all about, Alina? You could have let me hang, but you defended us." "I defended the project," I corrected him. "Your mistake put the entire campaign at risk. I wasn't going to let that happen." David approached me later, looking sheepish. "Thank you, Alina," he said quietly, for not throwing us under the bus. Helen, my supervisor, also had a word with me. "Alina, I appreciate your dedication, but you need to be careful. Your actions could be seen as disruptive. Remember, teamwork is essential." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the accounts team managed to scrape together the £20. Mark handed it to me, his face a mask of resentment. "Here's your blood money," he muttered. I took the money and deposited it in the office charity box. The incident was over, but the memory lingered, a constant reminder of my petty act of revenge. A week later, I received a package from Mr. Abernathy. It was a box of expensive chocolates, the kind you only see in fancy department stores. Inside, there was a note: "Thank you for your dedication and hard work, Ms. Alina. You saved the campaign." And then in smaller print, a postscript: "P.S. Tell your accounts team to double-check their numbers next time." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, it was worth it after all, even if it was just 20 quid. I unwrapped a chocolate and bit into it. Delicious. Although next time I'd probably just ask for a bonus. Then again,